Hello, my name is Melanie and welcome to my channel, Our Tropical Soil. In case you're new here, I talk about growing food in South Florida on my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you a tour of my winter veggie garden. This is the first part, and next week I'll be uploading the second part of the tour. So if you haven't already, then consider subscribing so you can watch the second part. So right here is where I have my annual gardens, and they're back over there, but here I have a perennial section, and my garden is basically divided up into 10 sections. The walkways divided up, so I have an area for my pots, and then this perennial area where I'm just planting perennial species. So I have a banana mat right here. It's a Cavendish variety, and I have an oak tree that gives it a bit of shade. I have African blue basil to attract the bees, and I want to plant a couple more of these in this area to attract more bees. And then I have cranberry hibiscus that actually isn't doing well. It's getting like pretty beaten up by some bugs, and I think it's mainly because it gets a lot of shade. Right now it's getting a good amount of sun, but for most of the day it gets a lot of shade because of the oak tree. Because I've grown the cranberry hibiscus right around here before, and it's never gotten this many pests, so I think it's because of the shade, because before they had more sun. And in the back I have katuk, so let me show you the katuk. Here's the katuk. I think it's not doing too well because it is the winter, so maybe it doesn't like the cold weather. Sometimes they get leaf miners, but they haven't grown that much. And yep, the katuk, I want to make like a hedge here along the fence. Down here I have longevity spinach that over time will grow as a ground cover over this mulch and keep all of the weeds down. Another thing about the cranberry hibiscus is that it is producing seeds right now, so maybe that is one of the reasons that it's growing so poorly, because it's stressed from producing all the seeds and the flowers. So I have Cuban oregano planted under the oak tree, and it's doing pretty well. Now that it's winter and the sun is lower in the sky, this little area right here is getting more shade. And here's my vanilla orchid. I have a video about when I planted it, so I'll link it down below and also up top on the video. Well, I planted it and I thought maybe it wouldn't do too well with the cold, but we've had some cold that's caused our sourshops to lose their leaves, and the vanilla orchid's been fine. In the summer it was kind of yellowing a little bit, and I think it's because it was getting too much sun, but now with the winter, again with the sun being lower in the sky, it's gotten a lot better. The leaves are nice and green, and it's grown from when I've planted it. It still hasn't attached though. It has the roots there ready to attach, but it seems that whenever it's going to attach, the wind just knocks it off and it hasn't been able to. In my perennial section, I also have some Okinawan spinach planted that I wanted to grow as a ground cover also, but it's in a lot of shade because of the cranberry hibiscus that's right on above it, so it hasn't grown that much. But maybe when I take out the hibiscus it'll grow. But look at those purple leaves. Let me pick one. I thought I would like the Okinawan spinach better than the longevity spinach, but they have both a very similar taste, and if anything the Okinawan spinach is a bit stronger than the longevity spinach. I don't really like it raw. I think it's best cooked up and added to soups and things like that, so you don't taste the flavor that much. But the leaves are beautiful. So from standing in this corner where the fence is next to the katuk, there is a lot of shade. So there's like a straight line of shade, and that's from this fence. So the south is that way, and it's winter, the sun is lower in the sky, causing more shade. So back here I planted things without realizing there was shade, and it really didn't grow. So I have some arugula and some carrots. I mean, they grew, but not as much as the ones that I planted in the sun. And I think this is broccoli. that's hanging on, but again, it hasn't grown. I planted this months ago. And right here, I planted some garlic just to experiment. I'm not sure if it's actually gonna produce a garlic bulb or not, but I did have it in the refrigerator for like 2 weeks, and I just stuck it in the ground here in the shade because I figured that the shade will keep it cooler until the summer comes, and then the shade, there's less shade, and so the plants will get more sun and maybe be able to bulb up, because they need to have a longer period of cool weather to be able to grow leaves so they can have enough energy to make a garlic bulb when the warm weather comes. So here you can see all of the garden beds I want to plant annuals in, and there's 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the other 5 sections, it's mixed. I have some annuals and some perennials, but basically the paths have divided everything up into 10 sections. So since the winter solstice already passed, the sun is coming up higher in the sky and the shade is getting less and less. So this was actually in the shade and now they're getting sun, so hopefully it'll start growing. This is broccoli and it's survived all this time. I planted this a long time ago and it's just been here kind of stagnant, but maybe it'll like shoot up some growth with the sun. Then next to the broccoli, I have cauliflower. That was also stagnant and hopefully it'll grow some. I had planted zucchini, which is this, and it did terribly. It was doing fine and then just got like a bunch of mold and just died. But right here I have arugula, and arugula here too, that's doing fantastic, like barely any pest problems. Maybe it'll get like a leaf miner or 2, but overall it's doing great. I just planted in a row and I didn't even thin them, and then I've just come and just pick. And right here, and they're big, they're pretty spicy, so we've only been eating like the tips in salads. Like this is what we eat in a salad, and then we chop up the rest and then cook it, like saute it with other things or add it to soup and stuff. Behind the arugula is my cauliflower plant that's been doing really great. It's under the shade of the plantain for some part of the day. Right now it's getting a lot of sun, but it's grown a lot. I was really impressed and happy with it. It still hasn't started making a bulb, but I think it's going to. The leaves are now like growing more elongated, whereas before they were growing rounder. And it has had like no pest problems. You could see the leaves haven't been eaten at all. And I want to mention that I haven't fertilized these plants at all with like any store-bought fertilizers or given them any like spraying of anything, like nothing organic. No organic sprays, no organic fertilizers, no homemade fertilizers. I just planted them and they got mulch. And that's it. I've been watering them when it doesn't rain for a couple days. I'll water them like every day because they really don't get that much water when I water them. So I'll water them more frequently if it doesn't rain. This is my first time growing a lot of annuals and having annual beds. And I was pretty scared and hesitant to try because I figured there would be a lot of pest problems, but there hasn't been. And it's been in the 80s in early January, late December. It was in the 80s here. And right now it's in the 80s or like the high 70s, and the plants have been fine. Like they get a little sad looking in the hottest time of the day, but at night they perk right up. So it's expected that they'd be a little bit stressed, but at least the bugs haven't gotten them. Behind my cauliflower, which is right here, I have like the Italian basil. They taste good, the leaves, but they haven't grown well. And I have some of these planted in my front door herb garden also. Hasn't grown well, but the cauliflower has, so that's good. And this is carrots. I did plant this is in the ground, so, and I haven't like tilled the soil or anything, so they might not grow too big because the soil might be sort of compacted. I pulled one up a couple weeks ago and it was about that big, a little bit thick. So I have hopes that we'll get like some carrots that are maybe like 6-7 inches long. And this is like a rainbow carrot. So there's purple, yellow, and orange carrots planted in here. I want to mention also that I have a lot of perennial peanut planted that I'm hoping will eventually cover everything up and be a ground cover, and there's some more back there. And before, when there wasn't any mulch and I was digging in to plant these, the soil was pretty compacted. It was hard to dig. And now, after the mulch has been here, I pull back the mulch and then I start digging with the shovel, and it's been a lot less compacted. So I really think like the worms are getting in there. Every time I dig a hole, I'll find like a worm or two. So I really think that maybe that's been helping to loosen up the soil a bit. Here's another perspective of the garden beds. So here's the first one that I was showing you, and there's plantains here, and I want to remove these plantains and move them somewhere else so I could have all this area for growing and have this full bed. So here I have planted mustard greens and Georgia Southern collards. This is the Florida broadleaf mustard. And then in the middle I planted beets, and they did not do well. They were transplanted in and they like grew, but then they died. I guess they like rotted at the base or something. I don't know, but I ended up planting some in the soil directly, some seeds, and only one came up, which is this one. So here's the beet that I have. There's just one plant here, and it seems like now that it's established, it's doing fine, but the problem is getting them established. Here is another tiny little beet growing. I tried germinating a couple seeds in some wet paper towels and in jars, and only one of them germinated, so I planted it and hopefully it'll grow like this one. Again, there's been minimal pest problems with these plants. I mean, like, they'll have a little bit of bites here and there, but nothing major. They also don't have any aphids. I've been checking and I haven't seen any aphids. So back there in those little holes, I have some bok choy. I have this bok choy that's doing amazing, and then I planted some more, so let me show you that. I find transplanting to be a little bit of a hassle, so if I could get away with direct seeding them, then that's what I'm gonna do. So I direct seeded some and they're doing fine. They're getting a lot of sun here for most of the day until after the sun ducks down behind the moringa tree. At some parts of the day, they'll start looking a bit wilted, like this one is. Right now it's really hot. It's like 12 p.m. right now, so it's right in the middle of the day. Back here I have some stuff planted that I'm gonna end up transplanting. I have some ginger, some turmeric, some aloe, and I tried transplanting my pigeon peas that I had growing. They were growing like in the beds and they were in the way, so I transplanted them, one here and one over there. They both died. Apparently they do terribly transplanting, which I found out after I transplanted them. But I do have one bush over there, and it's never produced any flowers or seeds or anything. Same thing with these. I don't know what the problem is, so I'm gonna have to purchase some seeds online, and hopefully those will flower and produce seeds, because they grow really well and they grow a lot, but they've never flowered, so I don't know what that's about. Here in this bed I have bok choy, more cauliflower, and I planted Swiss chard. So the Swiss chard is related to the beet, and a very similar thing happened. They grew, I transplanted them, and then they just kind of started dying. So I ended up direct seeding some, and I got one that grew. And it seems, again, that once it's established, it does pretty well. I really like the taste of these because they're really, really mild, great for salad. And again, there hasn't really been any pest. And I also have some growing right here. These are one of the ones with the red stems. This is the rainbow Swiss chard that I planted. And yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do to get them to start growing. I tried germinating them and they didn't work, like germinating them inside of a paper towel and a jar. And I kept them in a warm area too. It didn't work. These red ones seem to be doing well. They never got to this big. I think already when they're this size, they won't die. So maybe what I need to do is start them in pots and then transplant them when they're a lot bigger. If you guys have ever experienced similar problems growing Swiss chards and beets, since they are related, and haven't been able to get them to grow. It would be great if you guys would let me know like what you guys have done to have them grow, because I really like the Swiss chard and I really like beets, so I'm hoping that I can get them to grow. So the bok choy has been doing amazing. I had a couple planted in each hole, about 3, and then when they got bigger I would cut them at the base and then we would eat them, but these I let them grow to full size. This one's already actually going to flower and the leaves still taste the same, so I need to harvest it like today before it completely goes to flower. But they're so beautiful and they've done so well. Look at those white stems. They are under the shade of the moringa tree, so I think that has probably helped in growing them. They have some bug bites, but again, like nothing major. I haven't sprayed them, I haven't fertilized them. So for my first year growing an annual garden, and for the first time having like wood chip mulch, I think the garden's doing pretty well. Before, the food forest was here and there was mulch, so I'm sure that improved the soil a bit, but that was only for like a year or a year and a half that they had a lot of mulch in the food forest. This is one that was growing and it was just doing really badly, getting eaten by bugs. It still is. It's growing though, and I check and I don't see any bugs, so I don't know what it is that's eating them, but it's obviously stressed, and because these are doing fine and they're right next to each other. And here's a little one that just got kind of stuck. These were all planted at the same time as transplants, but this one just didn't seem to grow. So here I tried planting red cabbage and broccoli. Both did not do well. There's little tiny plants in here somewhere of the red cabbage that are just basically drying up and dying. I direct seeded them, so maybe I should try doing transplants for these. The broccoli is doing alright. I direct seeded it. Some of them died, but this one's okay. I think the ones with the most shade are the ones that will do the best, most likely. So hopefully these will grow well, because it's right next to the moringa tree. It gets a good amount of shade. I have cauliflower here. These were transplanted. The one I have over there that's very big, that one was direct seeded. But these are transplanted. There's 2 plants here actually that I haven't decided which one I'm gonna let grow. But they've been a little bit slow. But I think eventually they'll get to the size of the other one. Thanks for watching. Right here I'm going to leave a link to a video you can watch next.